So posterior urethral valve is quite common in male babies, a source of lower urinary tract obstruction, resulting in straining during maturation, improper urinary stream, and it usually requires intervention. Okay. Hello friends, in this video we'll be discussing the latest questions that came in the INI CET November 2021. So this time the paper was, at least the pediatrics questions in the paper were relatively simpler. You had more of one-liner questions, okay, and they were very basic concepts that were being tested. So I'm sure most of you should have answered it correctly, but for the benefit of all of us, let us discuss them once. So starting with the question, at what age the height of a child is half of his adult height, right? So we've already discussed when we have discussed the normal anthropometric parameters, we already discussed that at birth, how much is the length of the child? So length or the height at birth is around 50 centimeters. At 1 year of age, it is around 75 centimeters. And at 2 years of age, it becomes 90 centimeters, right? And by 4 to 4.5 years of age, it becomes around 100 centimeters. So, the usual adult height, okay? The usual adult height is around 170 to 180 centimeters, usually, okay? So, if you take the half of 180, okay? Half of 180 would be 90 centimeters. And 90 centimeters you can see is reached at what age? 2 years. So approximately at 2 years of age, the height is going to be half of the adult height, right? So let us look at the options that were provided one by one. So at what age the height of a child is half of his adult height? The options that we have are 12 to 18 months, 20 to 24 months, 32 to 36 months and 48 months, right? So the option which is closest to 2 years of age is the second option, 20 to 24 months. So that is the best answer for this question, right? So it is again an application of the basic thing that we have learned, how the length or the height of a child increases with age, right? Moving on to the next question. These are some very basic important developmental milestones which we have discussed n number of times, and I'm sure all of you remember them when these are attained. So social smile, you can see, is attained at what age? So we all know social smile is attained by the age of 1 to 2 months, right? So social smile by 1 to 2 months. Pincer grasp, what does pincer grasp means? Pincer grasp means that a child can pick up small objects using his thumb and the index finger like this, right? So this pincer grasp, immature pincer grasp comes at 9 months of age and mature pincer grasp comes at around 12 months of age. So pincer grasp 9 to 11 months, right? Walks 1 to 2 steps. So the child starts walking at around 12 to 13 months of age. So walks 1 to 2 steps 12 to 13 months age, and transfers objects comes at around 6 to 7 months of age, right? So let us see which of the options is correctly matching. 1 with B, no, we've seen 1 is with A, social smile 1 to 2 months. So 1 with A is in the third option. Let us see 1 with A, right? 2 pincer grasp with C, 9 to 11 months, okay. Walks 1 to 2 steps is with D, that is 12 to 13 months. And transfers objects is with B, 6 to 7 months. So option C is the best answer here. Again, very simple information that you have to synthesize and answer this question, right? Moving ahead. Again, this is very important question that we've discussed so many times in neonatology chapter. So what dose of dexamethasone? So this question is basically about antenatal corticosteroids. What dose of dexamethasone is given to a pregnant lady expected to deliver preterm, okay, and for fetal lung maturity? So we know antenatal corticosteroids are given to mothers who are expected to deliver between 24 to 34 weeks of gestation, right? And so what is the dose? You can use either betamethasone or dexamethasone. Betamethasone, the dose is 12 milligram, 2 doses, 24-hour apart. And dexamethasone, each dose is half of that dose. So the dose of dexamethasone recommended for this purpose is 6 milligram, 4 doses, 12 hours apart. So let us see. So which of the options is matching? So 6 milligram, 4 doses, 12 hours apart. So option D is the best answer here, right? Now, antenatal corticosteroids has multiple benefits. It decreases the risk of, NEC. It decreases the risk of respiratory distress syndrome. It also decreases the overall neonatal mortality, right? Moving on to the next question. The causes of seizures in neonates are which of the following? So, neonatal seizures, we know the most common cause of neonatal seizures is hypoxia, okay? And the most common type of neonatal seizures is subtle seizures. But apart from hypoxia, neonatal seizures can be caused by a lot of metabolic disturbances like hypoglycemia or low blood glucose values, hypocalcemia or low calcium values, hypomagnesemia that again predisposes to hypocalcemia as well, and disorders of sodium imbalance like hyponatremia, serum sodium going below 120 or 125, and hypernatremia if the sodium levels are really high. So all of these electrolyte abnormalities can cause neonatal seizures. Though more common causes would be hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, hypomagnesemia, but disorders of sodium balance, that is hyponatremia and hypernatremia, are also known to cause seizures. So the best answer will be all of the above, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? Moving ahead to the next question. A neonate born by full-term spontaneous vaginal delivery presents at 14th day of life with bilateral conjunctivitis. Okay, so redness of eyes are there, and the chest X-ray also shows bilateral opacities. What is the probable underlying diagnosis? So if you are getting, conjunctivitis in a neonate between day 5 to day 14 of life, chlamydia is suspected to be one of the important causative organisms. In fact, this chlamydia is also responsible for causing atypical pneumonia in neonates, right? So the best option out of the given, the best answer out of the given options would be chlamydia, okay? So it's not Streptococcus agalacti. Pneumococcus usually does not cause conjunctivitis, Haemophilus neither. So chlamydia is the best answer amongst the given options here, right? Now another fairly straightforward, simple question. Hepatitis B subunit vaccine. The vaccine that we use, hepatitis B vaccine, is derived from which antigen? We all know it is derived from HBS, hepatitis B surface antigen. And that is why to monitor whether we have got immunity to it or not, we can do anti-HBS antibodies, right? So in vaccinated individuals, the levels of these anti-HBS antibodies are found to be elevated. So the best answer to this is C, HBsAg, and not the E antigen, which is a marker of severity of infections. HBc antigen also is not used, and X also. Now, in which of these congenital heart diseases all of the 4 chambers of heart have equal oxygen saturation? Whether it is tetralogy of Fallot, total anomalous pulmonary venous connection, or transposition of great arteries, or tricuspid atresia, right? So, for answering this question, you should have some idea about the concept of these congenital heart diseases, right? What happens in tetralogy of Fallot? So in tetralogy of Fallot, the basic defect is, we know there is a large ventricular septal defect. So the 2 atria are there, right? And there is a large ventricular septal defect such that the 2 ventricles are almost acting like a single ventricle. So you have right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. So in tetralogy of Fallot, what happens, the pressures and the saturation of the blood in right and left ventricle are almost equal. You can see that there is a complete mixing of blood of the 2 ventricles. But there is no atrial septal defect as such in tetralogy of Fallot. So what will happen? In right atrium, what drains? In right atrium, what drains? Yes. So in right atrium comes the superior and inferior vena cava. And what about the left atrium? So left atrium, you have the pulmonary veins, right? Pulmonary veins. So of course you can make out that right atrium is going to have desaturated blood, while left atrium will have blood which is richer in oxygen. So in tetralogy of Fallot, clearly you can see all of the chambers of heart are not having equal oxygen saturation. What was the other option? Total anomalous pulmonary venous connection. So what happens in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection? Let us see. So in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection, what happens is, so if this is the right atrium, left ventricle and left ventricle, right? So the basic defect in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection is the pulmonary veins, instead of draining into the left atrium, will drain into the right atrium only. So that is the basic defect. So what happens in TAPVC is, so what happens in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection is that the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, as well as the pulmonary veins, everything is draining into the right atrium. Okay, and in order for it to be compatible with life, it is accompanied by an atrial septal defect, okay, or a patent foramen ovale. So it is accompanied by a atrial septal defect and or a foramen ovale. So there will be a defect here, right? Okay. So what is happening is, the blood, which the pulmonary blood, the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, everything is draining in right atrium, right? So this same blood will go to left atrium also. This same blood will go to right ventricle also. And from left atrium, this same blood is going to left ventricle also. So practically, all the chambers of heart are getting this mixed blood. So the oxygen saturation in all chambers of heart is equal in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection. I hope you're getting the point. Why it is so? Because in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection, what happens is, all the pulmonary veins, instead of draining into the left atrium, will drain into the right atrium. So right atrium is receiving superior vena cava blood, inferior vena cava blood and pulmonary venous blood. So this mixed blood is getting circulated to all the chambers of heart, left atrium, left ventricle, right ventricle, same blood is going everywhere. So all chambers of heart have blood which have equal oxygen saturation in total anomalous pulmonary venous connection, right? So total anomalous pulmonary venous connection is the best answer here. It is not TGA, because in TGA or transposition of great arteries, what happens? There is parallel circulation. There is one pulmonary circulation that is going on. There is one systemic circulation that is going on. So in one side of the heart, you get only oxygenated blood all the time. In other side of heart, you are getting deoxygenated blood all the time. So all the chambers of heart do not have equal oxygen saturation. Same is true for tricuspid atresia also. All chambers of heart do not have equal oxygen saturation. But in TAPVC or total anomalous pulmonary venous connection, we saw that all the chambers of heart have equal oxygen saturation, and we know why, right? Moving ahead to the next question. A 3-year-old girl presented with fever and splenomegaly. In which condition splenomegaly is not present? Now let's see. We know that splenomegaly is usually rather seen in leukemia. Acute leukemia, splenomegaly is present. Yes. Lymphomas also, because of the infiltration of malignant cells, splenomegaly is usually present, right? Aplastic anemia, no. So remember, aplastic anemia is a condition where hepatosplenomegaly is not seen, okay? So your question is, in which condition splenomegaly is not present? So again, our answer is aplastic anemia, because you can get splenomegaly in leukemia, lymphoma, hairy cell leukemia, you can get splenomegaly, but aplastic anemia has pancytopenia without hepatosplenomegaly. And if you do a bone marrow also, the bone marrow also will show that all the erythroid and myeloid components are reduced in amount, and the marrow is replaced predominantly with fat globules. Okay. So moving to the next question. Most common cause for urine flow obstruction in a male baby is? So, in a male baby, we know lower urinary tract obstruction in the form of posterior urethral valve or PUV is quite common. So babies who have PUV, you will get a history that their stream of urination is not proper. Mother can say that the urine comes drop by drop. It does not come in a nice stream which is normally seen. And you can also get a history that they have straining during urination. So they apply pressure before passing urine to bypass or to get over that obstruction caused by the posterior urethral valve, right? So posterior urethral valve is quite common in male babies, a source of lower urinary tract obstruction, resulting in straining during micturition, improper urinary stream, and it usually requires intervention, okay? So you have to do a cystoscopy, and the fulguration of posterior urethral valves can be done, or in fact surgical procedures may also be adopted, right? So PUV or posterior urethral valve. Now, which disease has impaired collagen synthesis? This is also a pretty straightforward question. So in rickets, we know what is the abnormality? the calcium is low or vitamin D is low usually. As a result of that, the mineralization of bone is not adequate. So there's no problem with collagen in rickets. In scurvy, what happens? In scurvy, there is deficiency of vitamin C, right? We know there is vitamin C deficiency, and vitamin C is very important for collagen synthesis, okay? So vitamin C is required for proper collagen synthesis, but there is vitamin C deficiency in scurvy, so collagen synthesis will not take place properly. As a result, collagen, which is the backbone of blood vessels, okay, so which is the main component of the blood vessel walls, so blood vessel walls are weak, so there is bleeding from everywhere. You get gum bleeding, you get subperiosteal hemorrhage involving the long bones, you can also get petechiae and all, okay. So vitamin C deficiency causes impaired collagen synthesis leading to scurvy. So scurvy is a disease with impaired collagen synthesis. Beriberi we all know is due to thiamine deficiency, and night blindness is due to vitamin A deficiency. Okay, amongst other causes like retinitis pigmentosa can also cause night blindness. Alright, moving on to the last question that I could get based on your recall. So arrange in descending order the following causes of neonatal mortality. So sepsis, prematurity and low birth weight, congenital abnormalities, birth asphyxia and birth trauma. So I am sure all of you know that out of these the most common one is prematurity. So in decreasing order, so most common to least common you have to say. So the most common we know is prematurity. Most common cause of neonatal mortality in India, okay, is prematurity, okay. So prematurity followed by sepsis, followed by birth asphyxia and birth trauma, followed by congenital abnormalities. So this should be the correct order, okay. Decreasing order of important causes of neonatal mortality. So prematurity most common, followed by infections or sepsis, followed by birth asphyxia and birth trauma, followed by congenital abnormalities. So you could see that these are so many important topics which have been asked in this recent INI CET exam, but you will agree with me that the questions were very, very basic. So if you are thorough with your basics, okay, if your concepts are clear, if you have good command over your basics and you've done justice with them, so there is no, there is no possibility that you will not be able to answer these questions, right? So there might be some differences in the wordings of these questions. It may be slightly different from what your actual questions were, because this is based on recall. The options or the wordings of questions might be slightly different. But what I would stress upon is these topics are very, very important. These concepts are very, very important for you to know. So make sure you read around them and you do not falter on them next time you get questions from same concepts, right? So all the very best for your upcoming exams. I'm sure you'll do very well. Thank you.